So, but bizarre as it sounds, the current COVID-19 mRNA product from Pfizer and Moderna are still under emergency use authorization for all kids in America up to 11 years of age. So, all kids in the United States up to 11 years of age are still under the emergency use authorization for these so-called vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna. And so why is that bizarre? Well, by definition, the emergency use authorization is supposed to be given under public health emergencies, right? So when the benefits are shown to outweigh the risks and when there's no effective alternative. And so, but we know that there are huge problems with this because, first of all, the risk-benefit clinical trials were never even done for kids. So, what's the basis for even including them in this? And then second, we've known that kids have a 0.003% or basically zero chance of dying from COVID-19 as of 2022. As of 2022, they basically had a zero chance of dying from COVID-19. So where's the emergency, for these young kids, for these young people, and really for anyone for that matter? I mean, there is, even in the elderly, there is no emergency with COVID-19. So there is, the fact that the kids are still under EAU is very strange. And one of the things that you and I were talking about just before the show was that this coincides with RFK Jr. doing some things that were actually helping to counteract this with kids. But I think this is a complicated situation, and I'd really love to talk a little bit about what Robert F. Kennedy Jr., his becoming the Secretary of Health and Human Services, how important that is.
Sure, we'll get to that in a second. Yeah, I'm going to give you a quick perspective. You're at all science on a day-to-day basis and at a high level, but me being more like a member of the public. Yeah. So what I've seen from people, it's like, oh, we were told to do X, Y, Z, don't question it. And then the guy didn't stop and no one really talks about it. And if you bring it up now, it's like, oh, well, that's over. We need to move on. And that's really, I guess, the summation of, I would say, the public's knowledge and thought about it. It's like, it wasn't a good time. I don't want to think about it. And it kind of ends there. And I think that's why people don't have maybe much interest in following up on what happened and everything,
That's a really good point, and I can totally understand that. I think it's a very uncomfortable thing, especially for those who receive these injections, to hear anything negative in terms of the long-term adverse effects that we're seeing with these things, which is what I've been working on and publishing. And so it's a very uncomfortable reality that many people are facing, knowing people who have been injured, but also knowing that their risk of certain things, certain diseases and disabilities may be substantial. And that's what's coming out in the research, and that's what's been suppressed, and what we talked about at the U.S. Senate hearing. So yeah, it's a strange time, but I think I believe that most people are interested in a healthier nation, both physically and mentally. And so what we're talking about is directly relevant to, health on a large scale. And what transpired over the past 5 years in terms of things that you and I have talked about in the past, like agency capture, corporate corruption, suppression of free speech. We talked about the retraction of papers or one paper that I wrote that was a very important paper. So in that context, it's very important to understand why the current conversation around COVID-19 is still so incredibly important, because it actually relates to things that we cherish in a democratic society, like free speech, manifesting through open scientific discourse, which a lot of people consider to be one of the purest forms of objective speech. You're trying to base it on facts and on observations and clinical testing and things like that. So why would you want to suppress the facts that you are revealing through well-designed studies? And why would you want to suppress the facts that about studies that were designed to show misleading conclusions?